Good morning, Michael Ware with Iowa Firearms Coalition. We have with us today Representative Shannon Lundgren, and today we've got a little IFC 2A talk, but it's actually very special because Representative Lundgren has something that she's doing we all need to know about. So with no further ado, Representative Lundgren, introduce yourself for us in full, and then let's talk about what you've got on the horizon.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Good morning, everybody. Good day. Shannon Lundgren. I'm from Dubuque County, 5-term state rep elected over here, serving the western part of Dubuque, so the more rural area of Dubuque County. I am a wife. My husband and I have been married 34 years. We've got 2 grown daughters with their own families and 3 grandbabies. And we're small business owners. So we have been really invested in Dubuque County for a long time. We own a restaurant catering business and a small travel agency that somehow I fit in on the side with all of my legislative duties and other work. But have been serving the district for 5 terms and very excited to serve a wider plethora of Iowans here in Eastern Iowa because I'm running for Congress in Ashley Hinson's seat. So just an everyday, average Iowan. I can relate to what keeps people up at night because I'm the same person. My family and I worry about the same things, which this isn't something that has ever been on my radar for sure. I'm not a really political person. I'm just a doer and I like to get things done. So we've decided after a lot of prayer and thought and discussions within our family that somebody's got to keep this district red and work with President Trump in Washington, D.C., especially, when we're talking about the conservative values that are important to us here in Iowa. And it's obviously very evident because we're a very red state these days. And we just felt like it was me. So the family said, go for it, Mom. We'll figure it out later. And so here we are on a path and just finished a 22-county tour and gearing up for the second round. And then, of course, going into session here in a couple weeks.
So you're telling me that you currently, as a Iowa representative, represent the area basically west of Dubuque for a little ways. There are fields in that neighborhood, some of which have dreams. I don't know if anybody listening out there knows what I'm talking about. What's it been like to be in this small, rural, really fantastic area? I'm curious about that.
Well, it's really amazing. I mean, obviously, we had MLB here for a couple years. We're building a new stadium out at the Field of Dreams, and we're going to have baseball back again in 2026, which is pretty exciting. My conversation with the governor when we were trying to kind of pull all of this off and working with stakeholders in the county was, this is kind of our Mount Rushmore, right? Like, we don't have the beaches, we don't have the mountains. But this is, baseball, there's nothing more American than baseball. And here it's in our backyard. So, I mean, it's been great for our economy here in the area. We've already got kids playing at the field. We've got softball and baseball tournaments and, I mean, in the hundreds all summer long. So, I mean, it's definitely a destination, but by kind of adding in this layer of Major League Baseball, and I tell you, there's nothing, so many people watch that first game.
Oh, yeah.
And
it was magical.
I had friends all over the country that I've met through the legislature and other legislatures that were just saying, hey, really, how'd you get that sunset? That's Iowa. I'm like, you guys, you don't understand. It is so beautiful. And we couldn't have, from the minute Kevin Costner walked out onto the field, kind of going, if you build this, they will come. Tears in your eyes moment, and then the sunset at the end of the night. We couldn't have scripted it better. I mean, it was a gift from God, and so it was really amazing.
Fantastic stuff. I mean, there isn't anybody out there that hasn't heard of the movie. It's just outside of Dyersville. It's absolutely a beautiful area of the state. I think that know that you're privileged to be able to represent those folks. And I think that you should be tickled and should others that you're willing to say, I'm going to pick up more area. I want to represent more people. I want to do more work. And so let me add to the stage here real quick for the people watching. For those of you listening, this is shannonforiowa.com. We'll be able to put this in the description. There'll be many places you can go see it. So let us know. I mean, sorry about the segue to the Fields of Dreams and what you have done and what you have been part of, but I really want to listen about I want to listen to you about what you've got, what planned for the future, some of the things you're concerned about. Certainly people that tune into this are going to want to listen to your Second Amendment foundation or your foundational views, but walk us through some of those things, will you please?
Yeah, so I was elected in 2017 with President Trump when he came into office for the first time. We had really a great voter turnout in Iowa and kind of see the tides turn a little bit. We turned the Senate red that year. It had been under Democrat control. So it was really kind of an exciting time, which meant that we had to do some really bold things. And so we started working on some of our laws to make sure that we were protecting the Second Amendment. And of course, 2017 was a pretty pivotal year. Of course, Representative and Speaker Pro Tem at the time, Matt Winchittle, ran the bill on the floor that really actually protected so much. I mean, duty to retreat. It was a gun omnibus bill. It was one of the first votes. I got to speak about it on the House floor. Matt said, "Hey, Shannon, like we need a strong Republican woman that defends the Second Amendment. Will you say something?" And I'm like, oh gosh, I absolutely will say something. So I got to get up and kind of talk about why it's so important that we be able to protect our homes and our families and our businesses. And so it was really actually exciting. And from there, we just kind of, because we kept growing our majority, we were able to do a little bit more each time. And then now, obviously, having the Second Amendment protected in our Iowa Constitution, Iowans voted for that. So anybody that's voting against any of our Second Amendment protection bills is just on the wrong side of history. It is so important. When I got elected, we had a really rough, just a very rough campaign. I mean, we were targeted. Our house was paintballed. Our business was paintballed. Our cars were spray painted. Our signs were destroyed. They were calling us nasty things and lying about us. And we won. And my husband said, Shannon, he goes, if this is what politics is going to be like, you need to learn how to shoot. You need to learn how to carry a firearm safely. You need to get, all of your training and you need to practice. And I did. That was the first time I bought. I have a 9mm Ruger LC9S that I love. I love to shoot it. It's fun. Although I in the Capitol, you feel so extremely safe because you can carry in the Capitol. So not only do I know that all of my colleagues are probably carrying, but I know a lot of you guys that are lobbying in our Capitol, lobbying for Second Amendment protections are also carrying. And so it's just really a good feeling to know that not only me, but, we've also worked on making sure that our 18-year-olds can carry. My goodness, they can go to war and they can shoot people and they can deal with the aftermath of all of that, but they cannot protect themselves at home. And I wanted to make sure, my daughters, we have 2 daughters, I have 3 sisters, that we had every right to protect ourselves because, we know there's a difference biologically between men and women, and we're just not quite as strong physically. So we needed something. So I'm just very proud of the work that we've done in the Iowa House and Senate, and with the help of the governor to make sure that, we have those protections in place and we just kind of keep working on it.
Well, thank you very much. IFC has enjoyed your support unilaterally all the way across the board for our initiatives, your votes, your comments on the floor. Thank you for those. We really, really appreciate it. It makes it very easy to have you come on with us and visit about these things, not because you're a fantastic candidate and that you have traditionally supported the Second Amendment, but we have a working relationship proven through time. So we really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Now, if it's okay, tell us a little bit about what you have in store for the future, what your views are moving forward, and what people need to know about you as a Second Congressional District candidate. Share with us, will you?
Yeah, I mean, I think any of us that grew up in Iowa, we're an ag economy, we're a farm district. We remember the 80s and how difficult things were when our ag economy was really struggling and suffering. So I grew up, born and raised in Dubuque. I've lived here my entire life in this district. So I really feel like I have the best grasp of what's going on here and what people are concerned about. And I think, we're looking at a pivotal time right now in our country, and with President Trump kind of at the helm of things and the tariff talks of how we turn kind of right tide everything going on with our economy and the cost of living and all of those good things. He's got some really great ideas. But I think we just always need to keep in mind that, we feed the world especially here from the breadbasket. Iowa is just a very important part of politics, generally speaking. First in the nation on the Republican side. Wish we could get that back on the Democratic side as well, because it really was a great boost for our economy when we've got everybody looking at Iowa and all the great things that we do. But it really boils down to people. And so the promise that I've always made my district, and continually in 5 terms have won by a bigger margin, even with competitors, is to listen. And I think too many politicians want to talk, and they want to talk over people. I want to sit at your kitchen table and hear what keeps you up at night. I want to be able to hear the concerns that you have about education, about healthcare, about the economy, about buying your first home. My girls are at that age, they're late 20s, early 30s. They have families. It was really hard for them to find an affordable home in this area without making it so difficult for them that they couldn't enjoy life either, right? And we've all gone through those pivotal moments in our lives where we had to prioritize what was important, and it's not always going out and having the nice car. It's where you lay your head at night and making sure that your family is safe and sound and protected. But I think that's what we're hearing, is that there's a lot of those concerns. I think for the most part, people think President Trump is going in the right direction, which I think is great. And I think they're okay with holding on a little bit longer, especially as we see how these tariffs play out internationally with our international trade. But, we've got to get rid of a lot of things that have made things more expensive. The green initiatives, we're an above all energy state, so we'll take any type of production because we don't want to get into the rolling brown and blackouts like other states do. However, we incentivize, a lot of things in this country where, I own a restaurant. Nobody's incentivizing me to buy local beef from the grocery store next door, but we do. It's a little more expensive, but I'm supporting another local business. And so I think we got to look at all the subsidies, and, there's a hand up and not a handout. And all of those kinds of things are happening. And I think we just need to, that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing from people, hey, I want to help people, but I don't want to foot the bill for everybody. So I think the economy is probably the biggest issue that we're hearing, and so much plays into that. Like I said, it's healthcare, it's your gas prices, it's your product prices. So, it's really about listening. We've just had a great 22 county tour, and literally I will walk into a coffee shop or a diner and we'll talk to the owner, or we'll talk to people that are sitting there with other people and just say, what's on your mind? And I think that's the approach that we're going to take, because people don't listen to people like us. They get elected and they get these big heads, and they want to be important, and they want to be famous, and they want to make money. I just want to come home back to my district and see my family and my parents and my grandkids, and see that my business is doing well. And you can't do that if you're focused on Washington, D.C. You got to be focused on the district. So that's just what we're about. We're going to focus on listening to people here in the second district. We're real people, and that's kind of our game plan.
Well, I think it's a sound one. I think one of my harshest criticisms of anybody in a position of leadership, it wouldn't matter if it was government, a business, a church, any kind of organization, is that they can't or won't set aside a little bit of time to listen. And when they do listen, I don't think that I'm necessarily asking them to manage all of my concerns or make my problems go away. But when you see people speak on television, we all see actors and whatever else do these things that are worth $1 gajillion, and they may have worked very hard to become famous. I understand that. But it's almost as if you look at them and say, I don't think you have any idea what my problems are. And if you did, it's been decades since you actually experienced them. I don't think that you really understand me. Therefore, I really don't want you to talk about me or weigh in, And so I can appreciate you having the willingness to go around and say, what's on your mind? Tell me what concerns you have, because I need to understand them in order to do this well. I think that's foundational to representation. I'm glad you're taking that approach. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, and I think, we do somehow we think that the government should fix all of our problems, We don't have all the solutions. I always tell people we make things harder. We put up barriers, we put up red tape. I mean, I'm a small business owner. I've seen it. 2007, the Smoke Free Act became law. We had just opened our bar and restaurant. We were a year old, and now all of a sudden we had to change our plans. Now, I'm not complaining that we don't smoke in our bars and restaurants anymore, but the casinos got an exemption. And I thought, well, who's listening to my business? I mean, there were businesses that closed because of that, because their foundational group of people that supported their business were smokers. Like it or not, that's just what it was. And they lost their business over it. And so, I think we find better solutions, and we hear better solutions and ideas by just listening to people and saying, well, what do you think? Okay, this is great. This is a problem. How do we fix it? And they might not have the answers. I will tell you, I don't have all the answers. But I think collectively, as we listen to each other, in the second district, we'll come up with some really good solutions that'll make life better for people in Iowa.
Interestingly, I'm thinking as you're saying these things, the solution to some of these things, and it's a broad statement to make, but if government was out of our way a little bit, in fact, I would probably say a lot, my personal opinion, but there are a lot of times where you can do some of the neighborly things that you're talking about a lot easier or a little easier if there weren't so many government roadblocks between them. I don't know if you heard in the background, my dog's running around behind here with a calf femur that's 2 feet long, because I just went and picked up my calf that I bought from a neighbor, a church friend of mine, and we buy that every year. And I absolutely wince every time I write a check for that and the processing, but it's super high quality, and all in it costs us less than very average burger from a box store. So I don't like writing that big fat check, but I know that this is better stuff. And I'm able to support a neighbor who actually gets a good price for good cattle, right? Anyway, brought the femur home. The dog's running around, tearing everything up because it's wider than the door, almost wider than the doorway. Anyway, I apologize for that noise.
Christmas for him.
Oh yeah, no kidding. And there's 3 more in the freezer, so we're good. But I say that to make the point, or to offer to people to think about this. There are lots of solutions, I think, that are waiting for us. We have to have representation that's willing to say, you know what is it that you need? What suggestion might you have? What idea do you have that we haven't come up with yet? And oh, by the way, how can we make this a little easier, or a lot easier? I think you're asking all the right questions. It's how I think good representation should start, and how you can build it. So kudos. I think you're on the right track. Thank you.
Well, we got to get out of the way. I mean, that's just plain and simple. We look at all of the regulations that we impose on our meat processors, or, for example, your farmer that wants to sell to the neighbor. At one point, the churches, I remember I told you, the 80s, the farm crisis. I grew up in that era. I remember the cheese lines at Five Flags Civic Center in Dubuque, people standing in line for cheese and milk and things like that. That's when the churches started help, right? Our churches were full. In Dubuque, we had a church on every single corner, and across from that was a tavern, and everybody knew everybody because they saw them in church and then they saw them at the tavern afterwards. And so we were helping each other. It meant that we put together a box. I grew up in a middle-class family, probably on the lower end of middle class. We had a roof over our head and food in our bellies. We went to Catholic school. Mom and dad sacrificed to do that. But we didn't have the extras. We had everything we needed. And I look back on life and go, I didn't do without anything. There were things I wanted that I didn't have, but I had everything I absolutely needed. And when we were down and out or were struggling, the church stepped in and helped. Now, all of these organizations want the government to give them money to step in and help. Well, we've lost the dignity in helping someone and having someone receive help. And that's another thing that we've really got to address. Get the heck out of the way. If I have leftover food from a catering, why can't I just hand that over and give it to someone? I have to follow rules to prepare it and keep it safe. And now I've got to toss it out. Or, even your big conglomerate stores. I remember they'll say a car seat expires. Well, it's never been used. It's never been damaged. Why did it expire? Why can't you give that to a homeless shelter? And maybe Mary's in here in our district where they're helping moms who are either escaping, some really bad life, but wanted to keep their babies and they just need a little bit of a hand up and we're going to help them do that. It's ridiculous. The rules and regulations we impose on the littlest things. And I tell you what, people are breaking the law every single day because they don't even know they exist, which is great. Keep doing it. In my opinion, you're doing the right thing for people. Whatever. How are you going to know all the laws that are out there? But I think that's really it. We got to get away from thinking the government can solve everybody's problems and look to our neighbors and try to figure out ways that we can solve problems. So we just need to get rid of the regulations and the red tape and the rules. And I know President Trump does want to do that because I've worked on bills in Iowa and then been invited to the White House where he's done the same thing. So we just got to keep pushing forward, but we can't do it unless we keep the majority here in Iowa.
Well, what other things do you want us to know about your campaign, the future that you envision, and what that you'd like to share with Iowa's Second Congressional District?
Well, I'm going to go back to a story just because we did talk about the Second Amendment earlier. And this is, I think, why it's so critical to have the right person where that supports our Second Amendment beliefs. We were in debate. It was late at night, maybe midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And I really don't follow social media that much. I don't care, that people that they want to be negative or they don't like you, or that just doesn't bother me. I mean, you have to use it for, political reasons because you got to get your message out there, but whatever. So I get a text from one of my colleagues. It was, like I said, very late at night, early in the morning. And they said, "Oh, did you see Representative so-and-so from Dubuque posted that you're going to allow people to carry loaded weapons on school buses?" And I'm like, wow, that's not what we're debating right now. I think we were debating a bill, you probably remember this, it was about trap shooting, right? Letting the kids ride the buses so that they could go to meets to do trap shooting. I mean, that's older than time. And so I saw the tweet and I got up and I walked over, and this is another rep from Dubuque on the Democrat side, sat next to her, and she was, "Oh, hello, friend. How are you doing tonight?" And I said, "If you don't take that tweet down that you just posted, you and I are going to have a problem." And she said, "Well, what tweet?" I said, "The one about carrying loaded weapons on school buses. That's not what we're doing." And she said, "Well, I mean, you kind of are. I mean, how they like to massage the words." And I said, "No, we're not. And you need to take it down or we're going to have a problem." I think eventually she took it down, and we didn't converse for a long time. But those are the things that we're up against as Republicans that are more about freedom and you making decisions that are best for you and your family, and the other side. And, there's a lot of candidates on the other side right now that have to get kind of flushed through as well. But, those little things, I think it's important to know that you've got to have representation that's just going to stand up and say, it's not right. You're lying. You're not being truthful. You're saying the wrong things. And, that's the voice that I want to be for our district. Not everybody is brave enough to, and bravery just comes in all different. I'm not brave enough to be a cop. I'm not brave enough to be in the military. I can take words every day. It doesn't scare me. But we all have our levels of bravery. And some people just don't want to stand up and talk about the things that are wrong that the opposition is trying to force on us. And so that's that voice that, I'm confident I can be. And so, we're just going to, like I said, just keep listening and making sure that we are doing what we need to do. The voters in the end, it doesn't matter how much money you raise. And, of course, when you go to Washington, they say, how much money can you raise? And are you going to vote with the president? But I mean, I've been supportive of the president since 2015. That's not the issue. Money, I'm going to do my best to raise as much money as I can. But that's not the foundation of what our campaign is about. It's going back to that listening and being a voice where people go, gosh, I talked to her about that. And now she's in DC and she's saying the idea that came from me around my kitchen table, or the solution that we were looking for. And so that's what we're going to continue to focus on, is just the people of the district and being a strong conservative voice for them in the swamp. And it's not a place that I want to live in. It's not a place that I even enjoy visiting, although it's better now that the National Guard has been there and President Trump has cleaned it up. But, this is my home. This is where I'm from. This is where my family is. This is where I was born and raised. And I think my values align with the voters. And there's just nothing phony about me. I'm going to always be direct and truthful, and we're just going to keep doing what we do best. So
Fantastic. I think that that's a great game plan, and I hope that it works. I really do.
I appreciate it.
Is there anything else before we go that anybody needs to know? Have we skipped anything?
I think we've probably hit the highlights of what's really
Okay.
important to me as I represent the district, and we're always looking for people that want to reach out and volunteer. We need caucus speakers. We need folks that are going to kind of help us share our message. Call us if you got a diner you want us to visit. If you've got a group that you want us to come in and listen to, we'll do it. Like that's the goal. We're going back into session here in a couple weeks, so it'll be, I'll have some time that's occupied because I'm still serving as the state representative for District 65. But
Mhm.
outside of that time, our family is willing to travel and talk to anybody and meet with anyone and, really take those solutions through the campaign trail, because it's not just us. We're all feeling the same thing. It's just having the platform in order to express what your concerns are. And we want to give people that platform.
Fantastic. Thank you. Everyone listening, everybody watching, that's shannonforiowa.com. Check her out, support her. I am very glad that you're running. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Michael.
Again, IFC can tell you unequivocally, we have had overwhelming success. We have had tremendous relationship with Representative Lundgren, and we're looking forward to you enjoying that kind of success on a national level. Thank you very much for coming on, and we want everybody to visit shannonforiowa.com and engage. Thank you.
Thank you.